Hello, and welcome to this week's project video. By now, y'all probably know the drill, but you just finished learning all about CSS and styling your HTML. And ooh, this label's wrong. I'll change that. Um, anyway, you learned about CSS and how to add styling and colors and all kinds of things, bolding, italicizing. Really anything you can find on something like W3 Schools. All kinds of different ways to style your text. So to practice that, in this week's project, you will be, maybe no surprise, using CSS in a project. So the way I am encouraging you to try this out is to create a web page that styles a quote that you like. The quote can be pretty much anything you want. It can be like a scene from a movie, or just a one line from a movie even. It can be like song lyrics or a poem or like an excerpt from a book or really anything. The important thing is that your code needs to contain at least 5 selectors and at least 5 style rules. So in this video, I'm going to spend 10 to 15 minutes or so sort of walking through how I would start this project. So you can look at the example that I've included here, and I might even start from that in a second. We'll see. And it includes both HTML and CSS. And then here's an image of what that ends up looking like. It's the speech from Star Trek, specifically The Next Generation. But you can choose whatever you want. But this is what I've chosen for the example. And okay, cool. So that's where we're going to start. That's where you will start. So that's where I'm going to start. So just to kick things off, I am going to start by going to Replit. That's the editor that I'm recommending that you use. And then I'm going to go to the Create button here, and then HTML, CSS, JS. Last week we learned about the HTML part. This week we are learning about the CSS part. We will eventually get to JS, but for now we are sort of practicing those languages. And you can call it whatever you want. You can stick with the default if you want, but I'm going to say maybe what am I going to eventually do? I think I'm going to choose like the speech from the Twilight Zone. So maybe I'll call it Twilight Zone, and I'll create it, and that will create a new project that takes me to the Replit editor with the index.html part open and the preview open over here. Okay, so you can start from the stuff that Replit gives you. I honestly think that it's kind of overkill. So I am personally going to replace this stuff with the example that I am providing here. So I'm going to copy this HTML into the HTML file here. And the formatting is gross because my screen is purposely tiny so that you can see it, but we'll see how it goes. And then, so I've copied over the HTML content so far. So I took the HTML from my example here and I pasted that into index.html. That's part of it. That's half of it. And I can even run this and you'll see that it is the content, but the content is not styled yet. And that's because I haven't copied over the CSS. So if I go to style.css, it's just the kind of default here. So I'm going to also steal it from here. So this is how I would start, honestly. You can also just start from scratch if you prefer. You can start with an empty index.html file and an empty style.css file. Either one is fine. If I were you, I would copy over the content, but both ways are totally valid. Anyway, now that I have run my code, you see here on the right in the preview, you see that the content that I have in index.html is styled here. So now I have a starting point where I have my index.html file and my CSS file kind of talking to each other, and one links to the other, and it works over here. So from here, I can change the content of each of those things to satisfy the criteria, which, to remind myself, they are 5 selectors and 5 style rules. Okay, so I think what I'll do is I will just delete the body section for now. And so now I don't have any content. If I run that, now it's just like blank. And okay, cool. So now I need to pick a quote, pick a speech or something that I like. I think I'm going to go with the Twilight Zone opening, which I think I can probably do from memory because I am a giant dork. But just to make it a little easier on myself, maybe I will look it up. So it is here. It looks like, and maybe I will Control F. You are traveling through me. Here it is. So this is the speech that was at the beginning credits of the Twilight Zone. So I'm gonna copy that over into my body section of my HTML. I'm just gonna copy it over as text for now. And if I run that, you'll just see the text, and that's not super exciting yet. But now I get to sort of dress it up however I want to. So first things first, maybe I'll break it up into 3 P tags, P sections. So I'm going to have an opening P tag here. It's a little annoying that Replit is kind of automatically closing my tag because I didn't want that, but maybe I'll just delete it. And I'll add the other one here, and okay, and then I'll have another one, P, and close my, it's annoying. I don't want to close it that way. I want to close it over here, /P, and then one more P tag. And that'll at least break it up a little bit so it's not just a wall of text. And I think I'm okay with the white space, fine. And I'll hit run, and okay, now I have the, it's broken up into 3 paragraphs. You can see that the styles I added over there are already kicking in. This is a different font than the default because I've added these P tags. So I might start by changing that. I mean, why not? So if I go to my style.css, I already have a style. So maybe I should just name the fact that what we need is 5 selectors and 5 style rules. This is a selector. This is an element selector that selects all of the P tags. And I say font family monospace, which gets this, you know, this kind of font. And that might actually work, honestly, but maybe I'll just, for funsies, I will go to like CSS font family options, maybe. And sure, and you know, you can play with it, and what I'm looking for is like a list of all of the fonts, and I think it's going to kind of be dependent on your browser, but yeah, okay, here's something I can play with a little bit. So here's Georgia, Jill, Sans, sans serif, serif, cursive. That looks like Comic Sans to me. You know what? Just to be annoying, I might choose that. Yeah, font family cursive. We are going to Comic Sans it. Let's do it. So font family cursive. Why not? Beautiful. And you can pick whatever font you want, but I'm going to just use this as an example. So now I have a font family cursive, and this is a style rule. So now I have my P selector and a style rule. I have these two, but you know, I'm going to change those in a second. But this is a selector and this is a rule. So I need 5 of each. So that's a good start. Let me go back to my index.html file. And, you know, maybe I will, you know, from here, it's up to me what I do. So you are traveling through another dimension, a dimension not only of sight and sound, but of mind. Maybe I'll play with sight, sound, and mind. Maybe I'll add a class around those. So I don't want to necessarily put P tags here. I could if I wanted to put them on like new lines, but let me just kind of show what that looks like. And then I'll show you the alternative. So if I have P tag, P tag, P tag, sound, basically what I'm doing is I'm making these words sight, sound, and mind into elements so that I can style those elements. And now the question is like, what kind of element should they be? I'm going to show them as P tags, which is not going to be right, but I'll show you, you know, why it's not right first. So I'm going to run this, and you know, maybe this is okay, but you know, you get this like it's on each line, and for some reason the and is not styled. I'm not quite sure why that's happening. Maybe there's something where a P tag can't be inside of a P tag. That doesn't feel true, but whatever. But I don't want it on its own line like that. And there's a couple ways I could fix that, but the way I am going to choose to fix it is to use a different HTML tag. So there's an HTML tag called span. So I'm going to type HTML span tag into here. And span is more or less, it's a arbitrary element that can go around a word or a couple words, but it doesn't break it up into multiple lines. It's like a subsection of a paragraph. So I'm going to change those three p tags into span tags. So I'm going to say span and span and span and span and span and span. Okay, so now if I run this, now they should show up like still in the paragraph, and now we're back to what we had before. So next, I don't think I specified exactly what you need to use, so I could just have a selector that's for all spans, and that would work. I could have a similar thing like span, and then I could choose something just to kind of demonstrate another approach that you might take. I'm going to actually turn these into classes. So let me look. I'm going to add a class attribute to these. So I'm going to say span class equals, and what do I want to do with these? Maybe I'll make them, what did I do before? I think maybe I'll end up making them big, but actually let me kind of delete this stuff because I think it's just going to interfere with my brain. I could make them big or maybe like green or something. Sight, sound, mind. So maybe I'll just say, bold for now. And this is a class name. It can be anything, but I'm going to say span class equals bold and span class equals bold. Okay. And this is kind of getting gross formatting wise, but let's do it maybe this way. I don't love it, but whatever. Fine. Sight and sound, but of mind. Okay, and so now I want to go back to my CSS file and style this class, this bold class. So I'm going to go back to style.jss or .css, and now I've used a class attribute, and so I want to write a selector for that class attribute, so I'm going to use the dot and then the name of the class, which I think was bold, and then the curly braces, and then in here I can style that that class. So I've named my class bold. I might as well bold it. So I'll go to the search engine and type in CSS bold. Like I've said a bunch of times, I don't think that you should worry about memorizing anything. I think the thing to take away from this class is the process of doing research and then trying something out. So it looks like font weight bold. Maybe I'll play with the number, see what that does. Font weight 900, okay? So maybe I'll add that here. So now I have the bold class selector and the font weight 900 style rule or style property. So let me save that and run it. And ooh, okay, that's pretty cool. It's bolder now. What happens if I change this to like, I don't know, 2000? Is there a limit? Yeah, okay, that breaks. What is it allowed to be? Does this tell me? Okay, here it is. Here's your options. So, okay, 100 is like not, it's probably like really thin maybe. Ooh, I didn't know that was an option. I don't know if I can tell the difference, but whatever. I kind of like that 900. That's basically as bold as you can possibly make it. So that's cool. And maybe I'll give them a color just for fun, or maybe I'll give it a border. So I'm going to say border. Let's just go here and say CSS border and look at the options that I have. CSS borders, sure. So a lot of different things to play with. And looks like you can give it a bunch of different like sections of the value. So border style, different border styles, okay. Kind of like dashed. This page wasn't very good, honestly. Oh, there's different sections. So border width, border color, border rounded borders. Okay, so you can make like a round thing. Okay, I think I'm looking for border shorthand, honestly. So it looks like you give it like a size and then a style and then a color. Okay. So sure, let's just go for it. So maybe I'll say border 5 pixels, what was it, dotted or dashed or something, and then maybe maybe green, and then a semicolon. So I'll run that. And yeah, I don't hate that. Cool. I might actually give it like a, what's it called? Margin. Margin 5 pixels. Maybe, you know, I don't know. I could play with it. But the important thing is that I am styling parts of my quote here. Cool. And I'm already at 1, 2 selectors. Okay, I need some more selectors. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4 rules. So I need some more selectors. Maybe let's add like an ID selector. So the twilight zone is a big one. So I'm going to put this in a span, I think, and I'll give that an ID. Maybe I'll include the exclamation point. Okay, and I'll give this an ID of I don't know, Twilight Zone TZ. And okay, and I will go back to style.css. Now I'll add a ID selector, and I'll call it TZ, just what I call it in my HTML. And now what do I want to do there? Here I want to make this like really, really exciting, and maybe I'll make the color red, and maybe I will, is there like a way to like, is there some kind of blinking? I kind of don't think there is, but let's see. This is going to get into like animations. This is kind of, it's going to get kind of gross. Yeah, there's ways to do it, but you know what? Why not? Let's just steal this code and see what happens. So what is this? This is the selector and the animation rule, and there we go. Okay. So again, you can read more about this stuff if you search for this and to understand like exactly how this works. But honestly, I'm just trying to get something to work. So let me run it and see what happens. And ooh, I do love that. Your next stop, the Twilight Zone, and it's blinking, and that looks cool as heck. So now I'm at 1, 2, 3. You know what? I'm going to count this as a selector, even though I don't know if it is, but close enough. So 1, 2, 3, 4 selectors, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I'm going to stop counting because it's more than 5 style rules. So this would get a 9 out of 10. And, you know, I could continue. I could add one more selector, but I think the process is the important part, and hopefully that helps you get started. Yeah, so again, what kind of quote you choose is up to you, and I encourage you to choose something that's like meaningful to you or fun for you or interesting to you, and then style it however you want to using the CSS selectors and style rules that we've talked about. Don't feel limited to use only the things that I have talked about specifically. Please feel free to type into your favorite search engine, like I just did here, CSS Blink. I didn't know how to do that ahead of time, so going on the internet, finding code that maybe does what you want, and then pulling that into your project and trying it out and seeing what happens. That's a big part of it. So I could, you know, maybe change this to 5 seconds and play around with it a little bit more to see like how it works. And so maybe that's a little slower, and you know, it's pretty cool. But feel free to follow that process yourself. In fact, I encourage you to follow that process yourself to find out what else is out there. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully that helps you get started on the project, and I cannot wait to see all of the quotes and styles that you come up with. All right, good luck, happy coding, and can't wait to see you in class.